Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. I am your host, Josh Davis, also known as Crash. And tonight I'm joined by the one and only Steve, aka Miller Time. And we are here to talk to you guys about the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night games this week in the NFL. We've got 15 games after tonight and going to be a lot of crazy weather all over the country this weekend, Steve. So I think it's really going to be key that we lock in on the weather and pay close attention to that when we build our lineups this weekend.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Certain games, try to stay in the games that have the domes, where there's not those variables that you have to deal with. So
definitely, that's definitely going to be my strategy for sure. I completely agree. Let me try and see here if we've got. I'm going to post our link here to the video in the chat because I'm not seeing anyone in our live stream so far. So let me see something.
Did you make it? Are you on your year-long thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the semifinals this week. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you know what? I dropped Trevor Lawrence 2 weeks ago, and I rolled with Geno Smith. And man, doing the points, like if you were to take away Geno Smith and put Trevor Lawrence the past 2 weeks, I'd be in the semifinals myself.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, how this season's gone and everything, and just a few plays here and there were the difference in a lot of people making the playoffs this year. So it's been a wild season to say the least. Well, we've got a lot to cover, Steve, so let's go ahead and get right into it. The first game, we have the Atlanta Falcons at the Baltimore Ravens starting at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Baltimore's favored by 7. This game has a pretty low over-under at 35.5. We've got 16-degree weather with 16-mile-an-hour winds. So just like almost every game this week, it's going to be cold and windy. Who do you like in this game? Any plays that stand out to you, or are you going to be fading this one?
Well, it's interesting, right? You see Tyler Algier go off last week, getting over 100 yards and a touchdown. I like him again this week. It's a little bit tougher of a matchup with the Ravens, but I think because of the weather and the situation and kind of like what's going on in that NFC South, I think I like Algier the most in this game, and I could put him into my DFS lineup as well.
Okay,
so that's probably my stud that I would take from this game.
Okay. Besides Algier, anyone else? Defense? Anything else you like?
No. I don't really like anybody else in this game. Everyone's been kind of underperforming, such as Mark Andrews and Drake London, and that quarterback change kind of screwed up that whole situation in Atlanta. So, not quarterback change. He went on, on IR. So, but. That's kind of the main guy that I would focus in on if in my DFS lineup for sure.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I have a little bit different take, which it's good for us to have different takes. Otherwise, there really wouldn't be much point in having 2 people on here, right? So I like J.K. Dobbins. He's 5,800 on DraftKings, 7,000 on Fanduel, $19 on Yahoo. Atlanta's allowed the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. He's had 15 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown 2 weeks ago against Pittsburgh, and then 13 carries for 125 yards last week. And I also like the Ravens defense, 3,200 on DraftKings, 4,900 on FanDuel, and $18 on Yahoo. So not a whole lot in this game for me, but those will be the plays that I like. The next game we have is going to be also at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Detroit Lions at the Carolina Panthers. Detroit's favored by 2.5, a little bit higher over under here, 44, 25-degree temperatures with 11-mile-an-hour winds. So, and this is probably actually one of the quote unquote warmer games of the outdoor games this weekend. So that just tells you how cold it is all the way across the country right now. So who stands out to you in this game?
Amon-Ra St. Brown. He
Yeah.
stands out the most to me. Try to get him in every lineup that I could possibly can, just based off of salary. But I also like Jamal Williams coming back and getting a touchdown in this game as well.
Okay.
The offensive line's been playing great. It's been kind of like a sluggish 1-2 weeks, but he's still been valuable in the past 2 weeks. I think he's going to get a touchdown or 2 touchdowns this week.
So. Okay. And those two, and that would be it for you in this game?
Pretty much. Detroit's been really good against the run, and with that quarterback situation, where DJ Moore been banged up for the past couple of weeks, there's no one else that I'd probably like on in this game.
I'm not going to go too deep into it. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. DJ Moore on the other side, he's 5,500 on DraftKings, 7,100 on Fanduel, $18 on Yahoo. Detroit's allowed the second most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. He did have a solid game last week against the Steelers. He had 5 catches for 73 yards on 6 targets and a touchdown for 18.3 DraftKings points. So especially on DraftKings for his price at 5,500, I think that's pretty good value. Probably not going to go to him on FanDuel at 7,100. That's a little steep in my opinion. $18 on Yahoo is solid as well. I do like both defenses in this game. However, there's a $1,200 price tag difference on DraftKings. You've got the Lions at 3,500. The Panthers are only 2,300. So I think with this cold weather and everything, both defenses can have a nice game. So those would be the plays that I would like from this game. Next game we have also at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Buffalo Bills at the Chicago Bears. The Bills are favored by 8, has a 39.5 over-under. This is an absolutely miserable forecast. 7 degrees with 23-mile-an-hour winds. I would not want to be in the stands in this game. Having been at Lambeau Field on Monday night when it was 15 degrees with almost no wind, I can just tell you how cold that's got to be with 23-mile-an-hour winds and 8 degrees colder than we were. So
it must have been so much fun. It must have been so much fun, though, right?
It was fun, though. It really was. And honestly, I would say probably 90% of the game people stood, so that kind of keeps you warm, too. Everybody's jumping up and down and yelling and screaming. So, yeah.
And a good outcome. A good outcome.
Good outcome. Yeah, definitely. Trying to sneak in here with the last-minute run at the playoffs. But anyway, back to this game. Besides the running backs, anything else that you like in this game? I mean, to me, that's kind of where I would lean. I don't know if I'm going to go to Josh Allen, with that kind of wind and temperature and everything. It's going to be hard to throw. I don't think this is going to be a monster game for him, but, you may have a different opinion.
Yeah, potentially, Dawson Knox kind of came out last week and did his thing. He was targeted a lot. Maybe it's the weather change. I kind of like Dawson Knox in this game as well. With this type of weather, you got to throw the shorter passes, those shorter, more predictable passes. So I like that. And I like the running backs, but it's so hard to choose from the Buffalo Bills situation. So I would probably fade the Buffalo Bills running backs, but I would go with Montgomery on the other side.
Yeah, I like Montgomery. He had a nice game last week against the Eagles, and he's 6,500 on DraftKings, $19 on Yahoo, 7,200 on FanDuel. So I feel like that's pretty fair pricing if he's going to get you 15 to 20 fantasy points. I think it's well worth it. And then it is hard to determine who you want to go with between Singletary and Cook on the Bills. I was kind of feeling the same thing, like it's kind of a toss-up. So not sure if I'm going to get to either one of those. The Bills defense is expensive, but they're in a good matchup, of course, and you have the weather on top of it. They're 4,000 on DraftKings, 4,800 on FanDuel, and $20 on Yahoo. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game. Also at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, the New Orleans Saints at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is favored by 3. Another rough temperatures and wind game here. You've got 9-degree weather with 27-mile-an-hour winds and possibly getting up to, I think I saw up to the 40-mile-an-hour wind range. So that's just absolutely miserable. besides Kamara and Chubb, anything else that you like? I think those are the two obvious plays with, once again, the high winds and the cold temperatures.
Right. In a game like this, kind of a flyer that you could, where they're going to try to maybe put the ball in his hands because they need a big play to happen, is kind of the big playmaker for the Saints this year is Raheed Shaheed. He's been more involved in the offense as of late. Past 2 weeks, he's had 9 touches, 10 touches. So if you wanted to take a flyer to kind of be able to put those other guys in your lineup that you might want but can't do, Raheed Shaheed might be one of those guys that you can put in there.
Yeah, I like it. That's a nice little GPP play. Definitely probably going to be lower owned as a wide receiver in this game, but I think it could be sneaky. So I like that. The other play I like in this game is the Browns defense, 3,800 on DraftKings, 4,100 on Fanduel, $14 on Yahoo. In that cold and everything, I think that they, besides Kamara and maybe Shaheed, if he's a sleeper, but for the most part, I think they can hold the Saints offense down with Andy Dalton. I think it's a good matchup for them. So we'll move on to the next game. Another game on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. It is interesting to me that they have most of the games on Christmas Eve, and then just like 3 on Christmas Day, and then the 1 Monday night game. You would have thought that they might have split it up a little bit more than that, or I would have, to try and compete more with the NBA, because the NBA has their big Christmas Day slate going all day basically. So but anyway, so you've got the Seattle Seahawks at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 10. Has a 49 over under. You've got 11 degrees with 14-mile-an-hour winds. So it's the theme of the weekend: cold weather, windy weather. What about Jerick McKinnon? I mean, he just kind of exploded out of nowhere.
Well, he's come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I like both running backs in this situation. I actually like Pacheco and I like McKinnon. So I think both those guys are playable. I like, on the other side of the ball, I like this whole game. I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week. I think Geno Smith can put up points against Kansas City. I mean, look what Russell Wilson did against them, 2 weeks ago. And, it's very, it's going to be a high scoring game. And I like a lot of options in this game. A guy that might be cheap right now could be Marquise Goodwin. Goodwin could be one of those guys that, since Tyler Lockett's out with that finger injury, I think he could be a really smart play this week too.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a really good call, because DK Metcalf is, who everybody's going to flock to with Tyler Lockett out. But Marquise Goodwin has definitely had some nice games, and there'll be opportunities for him in that role, taking Tyler Lockett's spot. I think that's a good call. Besides the ones you mentioned, I do like Pacheco too. I think he's a nice pivot from McKinnon. I think McKinnon's probably going to be one of the highest owned players on this slate, rightfully so, with how he's performed. And Seattle's run defense has not been good at all. They've allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs this year. So I think those are solid plays with Pacheco and McKinnon. I like Travis Kelce. They've also allowed the second most fantasy points to tight ends. As we mentioned earlier with one of the tight ends that you talked about, in this short passing type game, cold weather, windy weather, Mahomes is probably going to rely pretty heavily on Kelce. So I do like him a lot. He is expensive. He's $8,000 on DraftKings, $8,600 on FanDuel, $38 on Yahoo. But I think he's well worth it, especially when you look at a lot of the wide receivers and the tough weather games that they have. You could just pay up for Kelce. And I think with that short passing game, he's going to be heavily involved. So
absolutely. Yeah. I like that.
The next game is one of my favorite games because of the whole weather situation this weekend. The New York Giants at the Minnesota Vikings. I think this will probably be, one of the highest scoring games as well. Minnesota's favored by 4. It has a 48 over under. Of course, they're indoors. I'm going to be looking to get at least 3 people from this game, if not more. But how do you feel about this one?
I agree with you the same. Again, getting into a controlled environment, no weather issues. It's a big game to be a part of. Minnesota Vikings have a lot of have a lot of scoring capabilities. So there's a couple different guys that I would take from that roster. Obviously, you want Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne. Last week, if you were to watch kind of how the game script played in the first half and were to make a bet that KJ Osborne was going to score in the second half, you had like 9-1 odds, and you could watch that whole game. But KJ Osborne's that's a sneaky play as well. I like him in this game. So, but what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he got 16 targets last week. I was pretty surprised when I saw just how many he got. So I definitely think, both Jefferson and Osborne. I think Dalvin Cook, 7,200 on DraftKings, $28 on Yahoo. I don't really want to pay 8,700 for him on Fanduel. When you've got Derrick Henry up against the Texans, we know what that's meant in the last several games. So that's where I'm going to pay up at running back with Henry. But I do like the weapons with, Jefferson and Osborne. I think that Kirk Cousins is a good play. 6,300 on DraftKings, 7,700 on FanDuel, $32 on Yahoo. He's just been a whole lot better at home than on the road. So I like him in this controlled environment. I also think you could look at Daniel Jones. Some people might scoff at that, but he's had some pretty nice games lately. Minnesota has not been good defensively. I mean, they allowed 33 points in the first half to the Colts. So, it's pretty crazy how much their defense has struggled. And I think Patrick Peterson might be dinged up. So that's going to make it even tougher for them. But 5,600 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel, $28 on Yahoo. I do like Daniel Jones. And I also think that Darius Slayton is going to be an option too. But I'm not sure if I'm going to get to him just because there's a whole lot of players that I like on this slate that are in that price range. So next game we have, and this one is probably one of my least favorite, the Cincinnati Bengals at the New England Patriots. Bengals are favored by 3, 41.5 over under, 18 degrees, 14 mile an hour winds. I'm basically just looking at the defenses in this game. There's not really anything else that I like.
I mean, it's based on the weather and everything going on there. I mean, then you got to jump to the run game, right? So the Patriots, excellent against the run. They're gonna hold that whole situation in check. They're good in the passing game as well. They're real solid defense. So I like that call there. As far as the Patriots go, though, Stevenson, he's going to play. I think he's a playable option. Depending on his depending on his ownership, I would think that he could be in play. So that's kind of the guy that I would go for in this game.
Yeah, I like that call as well. The next game we have, as I mentioned, we've got the Tennessee Titans hosting the Houston Texans. The Titans are favored by 3, which is not very much at all compared to what I would have thought it would have been. But they are going to be without Ryan Tannehill, so that's probably affecting the game a little bit. 35.5 over under, real low over under, 16-degree temperature, 12 mile an hour winds. To me, with the way that Henry's carried the ball against the Texans, 4 straight 200-plus rushing yard games against them, I think he's probably going to – and with Tannehill out, I think he's probably going to see close to 40 carries on Saturday.
Absolutely.
I just think it's just going to be pound Henry at will, So
you pay up for Henry based on volume. So for sure, I would have Henry in this game all day, especially with Tannehill out. There's no other real pass options for Tennessee. I think Burke's out again, and and just the camaraderie, the timing that needs to be spent with the receivers and tight ends. I just don't think Malik Willis has it. So
I don't either. I think he might be worth a look a little bit as a sleeper in a GPP as a pivot from a guy like Gardner Minshew, who I think has a terrible matchup against Dallas's defense. I think that Philadelphia has a lot of nice weapons and everything. I just think that's a really tough matchup for him, and I think he's going to be way over-owned. Just because he's so cheap doesn't necessarily mean that he's a good play. And I think Willis has a better matchup here against Houston. And he did have that game in Kansas City, so he does have a little bit of experience. But like you said, the chemistry and the camaraderie is probably not there, and it could be, like I said earlier, 40 carry game for Derrick Henry. So I think he's the obvious play. Should be the highest owned player on the slate, but for some reason, like the last time they played played Houston, he wasn't, and which was pretty surprising. He was probably about 20-something% owned when I thought he probably would have been in the 50s or higher. So, if he gets 30 to 40%, that's still probably too low, in my opinion, from what he's done against them. So, Derrick Henry is my favorite play on the slate. Chigakonkwo is worth a look at 3,500 on DraftKings. I'm not going to pay 5,400 on Fanduel. That's just too much. And then he's $15 on Yahoo, so that's kind of borderline. I also think the Titans defense is a solid play. 3,600 on DraftKings, 4,700 on FanDuel, and $15 on Yahoo. And we move into the afternoon slate. We've got the Washington Commanders at the San Francisco 49ers at 4:05 p.m. Eastern. This is one of the few games that has some decent weather outdoors. 61 degrees, 4-mile-an-hour winds. Has a 37.5 over/under. 49ers are favored by 7. Even though it does have some nice weather, it is, compared to the other games at least, it's still really good defense against a decent defense in Washington. So I think this game will probably be lower scoring, but I do think that San Francisco definitely has some plays that I would want to get to.
Yep. I agree. The defenses is in this game. I actually like Washington in this game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do. I like, you watch the past couple of weeks, the way that they've been running Purdy. Everyone is all on the Purdy board, and, they're on that bus and they're going with it. But, they set them up with with high percentage throws and high percentage plays, and there's no deep routes and this and that. And Washington has a really good, front five.
They do.
And I think they're gonna put more pressure on Purdy to be able to make some plays. And I like turnovers going into the Washington's direction. And I'm going the opposite way in this game.
Okay, and it looks like Chase Young will make his debut this season on Saturday. So yeah, that's going to make a big difference for them, just emotionally, but with all the talent that he has too. So that's like San Francisco getting back Nick Bosa. It's just a huge lift.
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah, there definitely is some interest for me in Washington with that being the case. I wasn't sure exactly when he was going to come back. I know the last several weeks he's been close, so I'm glad that he's finally going to be back out there because he's going to make a big difference for Washington. I do like McCaffrey, though. He's 8,800 on DraftKings, 9,400 on FanDuel, $35 on Yahoo. The way I'm looking at him is kind of, if you wanted to pivot from Derrick Henry, I do think that Christian McCaffrey is a solid play. Just because there's so many different ways that he can get involved in their offense. They even sometimes have him throwing the ball. So,
right.
So he's just a jack of all trades, and he can do it all. So I do like McCaffrey. San Francisco's defense, I think, is also in play. They're 3,900 on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel, and $20 on Yahoo. They are very expensive, but obviously they've been paying off that number pretty consistently the last several weeks. So that being said, we'll move on to the next game. It's the Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. Dallas is favored by 6. It's a 46.5 over/under. Of course, they're playing indoors. The big news here that broke really literally right before we walked into Lambeau Field. We were listening on the radio on the way into the stadium as we pulled into the well, we actually didn't park in the parking lot. We parked in front of somebody's house because that's just how it is up there at Lambeau Field. It's literally in the middle of a neighborhood. Right. So you just park in somebody's driveway, and that's pretty cool. It has a college type feel in Green Bay. So anyway, that news broke right as we were pulling into the guy's driveway up there. And, so that's obviously some huge news. Do you think that Gardner Minshew is worth a play against this Dallas defense? Because I kind of have my doubts.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Gardner Minshew against the Dallas Cowboys. Matter of fact, I would try not to play anybody against the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence had a good game last week, and other teams do pretty well, or have done pretty well against Dallas in sporadic games. But I wouldn't play someone that hasn't played all year against a defense that is top 10 in the league in rushing and receiving, or against all positions.
Yeah, they're really tough. What about on the flip side? What about the Dallas players? Who do you like over there?
So I try to put Tony Pollard in my lineup every week. So I like Tony Pollard. As far as the other positions, I'm not a huge fan on any of the wide receivers this week for Dallas. I'd probably just stick to the running backs. I could even throw Elliott into that lineup as well.
Yeah, I agree. I like both Pollard and Elliott. Pollard 7,000 on DraftKings, Elliott 6,000. They're closer on Fanduel, where Pollard's 7,700 and Elliott's 7,400, and then Pollard's 29 on Yahoo. Elliott is 22 on Yahoo.
And I do like the Dallas defense too.
Dallas defense, yeah. And what's crazy is they're only 2,600 on DraftKings. Yeah. It's just way too cheap. And that's because they thought that they were going to be going up against Jalen Hurts. They didn't adjust their price. So 4,000 on FanDuel, still not bad, and $18 on Yahoo, still reasonable. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Dallas's defense and the running backs is a way to go here. I like Devontae Smith a little bit. He's 6,600 on DraftKings, 7,600 on FanDuel, $22 on Yahoo. He won't have to see Trayvon Diggs. I think he'll probably be matched up on A.J. Brown. And, I think that it's been proven that whoever is on the opposite side of Trayvon Diggs has had quite a bit of success. So that's where Christian Watson had his 3-touchdown game, against Dallas. So I do like Devontae Smith a little bit. The Sunday night game is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's going to start at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we have the 50-year anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, and unfortunately, we did lose Franco Harris this week. That was very sad leading up to this game, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot of emotion and memorial type stuff going on that night. But it's 13-degree temperatures, 15-mile-an-hour winds, so once again, very cold. I think either the Steelers running back Najee Harris, if he plays, he's questionable, and the Steelers defense are probably my favorite plays in this game. What do you think about this game? Obviously, it's the single game. It's on the single game slate, so we'll probably have a separate lineup for it. But I did include it just so we could go ahead and cover all the games going to Monday. So
you don't have your Davante Adams in this one?
I don't. I just think the weather is going to make it pretty tough for him. Yeah. I know that with Aaron Rodgers, he was able to have some really nice games in the cold weather and everything, but Derek Carr's not really used to that cold weather. So I think it's going to make it tough because Rodgers has the strength to rip through the wind and all that. And
Carr's just not that.
And Carr, I just feel like he's probably going to struggle a little bit, and they might rely more on Josh Jacobs in this game. Yep. So, yeah, I don't think this is – and you just have to pay so much for Davante Adams. That's the other thing. So, yeah.
Well, I hear you on that. I was just, the Green Bay guy. But
yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, I like Najee Harris in this game as well. He's been coming on as of late. He's done a lot better than in the beginning of the season. They rely heavily on him. Last week when Pickett went out or Trubisky started – they relied heavily on him then. I think they're going to do the same thing this week. I like both running backs, but I think that they're going to go after Davante Adams this week. I think they might force feed him. I think he could get a touchdown or two this week. So I like Davante Adams this week.
Okay. All right. The next game, we move to Sunday, and it's my Green Bay Packers taking on the Miami Dolphins. This should be a really good game, I hope. 1 p.m. Eastern, Miami's favored by 4, has a 49.5 over-under. I think that might be the highest one we've said all this weekend. And it's 54 degrees with 11-mile-an-hour wind. So for going to Miami, I feel like that's a pretty reasonable, weather for Green Bay to have to deal with, because usually when they go down there, it's like 90 degrees and, they have extreme heat and everything. But 54 degrees with 11-mile-an-hour winds, I mean, that's pretty much cold for Miami. So. Uh-oh, we lost Steve here. I'm not sure what happened. Hopefully he'll come back. But anyway, so my favorite plays in this game, on the Packers side, I like Aaron Rodgers, 5,700 on DraftKings, 7,300 on Fanduel, $26 on Yahoo. The Dolphins have allowed the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. This game's on national TV. With both, Watson and Dobbs now, I think that, this is going to be one of the better spots that Rodgers has been in all season. So I do think that he is a decent play and will probably go lower owned on the Thursday to Monday slate. Obviously on a Sunday only, he's probably going to get quite a bit of ownership, but I do like Aaron Rodgers with him getting his weapons back finally. A.J. Dillon has been playing very well of late. He's 5,900 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel, $18 on Yahoo. And he's found the end zone in 3 straight games, and he had 2 touchdowns in the game Monday night when I was there against the Rams. Christian Watson kind of had a down game against the Rams. He's 6,000 on DraftKings, 7,700 on FanDuel, $25 on Yahoo. I do like him. I also like Romeo Dobbs as a value play, 4,800 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel, $14 on Yahoo. Welcome back, Steve.
Hey, how's it going, man? Sorry, I don't know what happened. So
that's all good. I'm not sure what happened either, but so I was just giving a few of the plays that I liked on the Green Bay side. And then on the Miami side, Raheem Mostert, he has some history. He's the guy that killed us a few years back in the NFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. So I do like him. Green Bay struggled against the run almost all season. He's 5,500 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel, $19 on Yahoo. And then, of course, Tyreek Hill, 9,100 on DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel, $36 on Yahoo. Jalen Waddle, I think he's probably my favorite wide receiver from the Dolphins in this game. I think Jair Alexander will do a decent enough job on Tyreek Hill, even though he's kind of had a little bit of a down year this year. Jair has. He still made the Pro Bowl, which was surprising to me. But I do think Jalen Waddle will be the better of the 2 receivers in this game. And then Tua Tagovailoa. Green Bay has always seemed to struggle with these mobile quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts had that record-breaking game against them. But it is interesting to me that Tua doesn't really run as much as you would think. He's kind of been more of a pocket passer. So that's pretty interesting to me. How do you feel about this game, Steve?
Yeah, I like the Raheem Mostert play. I think, like you said, the Green Bay has struggled against the run all year long. So I like Raheem Mostert as well. I really like the Dolphins in this game. So I like that's played in Miami. It's gonna be a warmer game. I like Waddle. I actually like Tyreek Hill as well. I think this is a good stack game.
Yeah.
I think all of the guys from Miami are kind of in play, even though the Packers are doing well and they're coming together. I think this is the bounce back game for Miami.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's interesting because I think this was what I was saying right when you got cut off, but the temperature is actually not too bad. 54 degrees with 11-mile-an-hour winds. I feel like for Miami, Green Bay kind of caught a break. It's usually in the past, it's been like 85, 90 degrees when you go down there, and they have the whole thing where Miami wears their away uniforms and Green Bay has to wear their dark green and all that. So I don't think that's going to be as much of a factor this time around. I mean, you're probably looking at temperature similar to what it was in Green Bay about 3 to 4 weeks ago. So it's not too bad this time.
But this could be another high-scoring game as well this week.
Yeah, I think so too.
Miami's given up some points. And,
definitely. It has a 49.5 over-under, which I think is the highest on the slate on the whole weekend. I mean,
yep.
So yeah, yeah, definitely expecting some points in this game. Next game, not so much. You got the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Rams. 4:30 p.m. Eastern start time. Denver's favored by 2.5. 36.5 over under. It is indoors. For me, I only like the defenses in this game. Anything else that you like from this one?
I like Latavius Murray in this game. He had over 120 yards last game and a touchdown. Marlon Mack had a touchdown as well and 65 yards. But I think they're going to give it to Latavius Murray. It might not be the most exciting play where he breaks off a 50 or 40-yard run, but I think he's going to have the volume, and I think he can. I think he can get a touchdown this week with another 100-yard game. So
yeah. It's a really interesting game because this is the game that they chose. You know how they had like the last couple of years on Thanksgiving, that Nickelodeon broadcast with all the crazy animations and all that stuff. They're thinking Russell Wilson versus the defending Super Bowl champs, and instead you get this mess of a game with Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield and just a lot of guys out for the Rams. So it's pretty interesting how that turned out.
But I think it's going to be the most low-scoring game of the week.
I do too. That's why I like both of the defense in this game. I think, either one of them are definitely in play. Then we have the Sunday night game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Arizona Cardinals, 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Tampa Bay is favored by 7.5, as a 40.5 over/under. I like the Bucs, almost exclusively here. On the Arizona side, is there anyone that you like, or do you just like the Bucs as well?
I like the Bucs as well. I like James Conner on the other side.
Okay.
I think even in the toughest matchups, James Conner has produced.
Yeah.
For instance, Denver has a really tough, rough run defense. I think he scored 18, 19 fantasy points last week. So he's a guy that you could put into your lineup. The only other position on for Arizona is I could potentially go with their defense. Their defense, regardless of how bad their offense has struggled, their defense gets sacks, they get turnovers, they get defensive touchdowns. I think they lead the league in defensive scores this year. So it's kind of a sneaky play. It's a play that the guy that was number one in my whole fantasy football league, he's been playing that defense all year, and I'm like, why? But you go back and kind of look at it. They're actually one of the more consistent ones of the bunch. So
yeah, I agree. And that leaves us with the last game this weekend. It is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Indianapolis Colts. It's going to start at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Monday night. The Chargers are favored by 4.5, has a 45.5 over/under. I'm interested to see, psychologically where the Colts are at, giving up the biggest comeback in NFL history. They have to feel pretty down, after that, I would think. So I think the Chargers could run away with this one.
I agree. I think the Chargers defense is a real strong play in this one, and I think they're going to set up their offense to put them in really good situations. Indianapolis's offense is, I think, bottom of the league, number 32. So I like a lot going on with the Chargers this week. So
yeah, I agree. Austin Eckler, one of your favorite plays in this game?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, that is going to do it for our recap of our preview of the Saturday through Monday games this weekend. My plan right now is to have Saturday, the main slate lineups, and then Saturday night we'll have the showdown slate lineup, and then we'll have the same thing Sunday, have the 3-game slate. You'll have the 2 games in the afternoon, and then you'll have the single game at night, and then we'll have, of course, the single game lineups for the Monday night game. So going to be a busy weekend for us doing NFL, that's for sure. And then what else was I going to say? Oh, do you have anything for the Prizepicks plays? Anything that stands out to you?
I don't right this second, but I'll post it to Discord.
Yeah, we'll definitely post that into Discord. Favorite pay up option for this week for GPP? That's a good question.
pay up option for GPP, then I would go with Derrick Henry. You're going to pay him up, pay for
Yeah,
him.
I think he's playable in all formats, whether it's tournaments or cash. I think you can pay up for him for sure. The other guy is the one I mentioned. I think Christian McCaffrey. He would be another one that I like quite a bit. So that is going to do it for the Week 16 podcast. We'll be back again on our usual time, I think, next week. It's going to be is that Christmas, or excuse me, New Year's Eve? Or no, that'll be New Year's Day, won't it? Next Sunday.
It will be. Yeah.
Okay, New Year's Day. So are you down for doing a podcast that day, or are you going to be out of it?
Of course.
I know it's going to be early in the morning.
You know what? I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be up in Flagstaff watching a pine cone drop.
Oh, wow.
Pretty excited. Yeah. So that's what they got.
So maybe we'll do another, Thursday or Friday show next week then for the Week 7.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you joining us. If you haven't joined DFS Coach Talk yet, join us at dfscoachtalk.com. We would love to have you. If you would, hit the like and the subscribe button on your way out if you haven't done that yet, and then hit the alarm bell. That will let you know when our newest podcast has gone live. We'll be back again next week when we look to crush it in the NFL, DFS, and Prize Picks. Thank you.